Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each time we give you different book recommendations on a specific theme. This time, we're getting towards the end of the year, so Cailey and I thought we would give you our favorite reads of 2021. So these are books that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet and thought that we want to share with you that were some of our personal favorites.
Yes, and we constantly have so many books that we want to read and books that we'd love to tell you about. So all the time there are some that we haven't had a chance to mention. So getting to the end of the year here, we had to pick a couple of rock stars to share with you. And all the books that we're going to talk about today are available through the library, physical copies, as well as online through Libby and Hoopla. Okay, Meg, tell me your first favorite.
So my favorite is a very new one. It's called Get Back, edited by John Harris, with photos by Ethan A. Russell and Linda McCartney. So this is a companion piece that goes along with the new Beatles documentary that is actually coming out this weekend on Disney Plus, the streaming service. So it was directed by Peter Jackson of Lord of the Rings fame, and it covers the Beatles during the making of their last album together, the Let It Be album. So it's really interesting because there's all these new photos and footage from their recording of this album session that gives you a lot of insight into the band during their last time together. I'm a big Beatles fan. Anyone who loves music though is just going to love the in-depth look into this band, all the gorgeous color photos. And what I like about it is there's really not a whole lot of outside narrative in this book. It's really just transcriptions of the actual unreleased recordings of the band talking amongst themselves in their early drafts of the songwriting process. So you'll get like some of their personality in the mix there and how they actually changed some of the songs they wrote as they went along. But the really cool thing about this book and the documentary that's coming along with it is that there's always been this narrative for years and years that the Beatles at this time, right before they broke up, that it was a really depressing time. They were really angry with each other. They didn't get along. But this kind of sheds a new light on it. And it's actually a lot of joy, a lot of playful banter. And it actually was a very creative time for them, even though they were near the end. So I think it's a very interesting read. Whether you're a fan of the Beatles or not, I think you can get a lot of fun stuff from this one.
That's really interesting. I had not heard that there was a new documentary. I'm sure that my mom knows, as she is a big Beatles fan. Yeah. But I wonder if she knows that there's a companion book.
Yes, I know, right?
That is interesting. I'd like seeing those behind the scenes things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this year, I think I haven't read as much for fun as I usually do. I've had a lot going on. And honestly, some books I've started this year and they just really haven't caught my attention, or I've already mentioned them to everyone on All Booked Up. But so I had to think about what were my favorites of this year. Yeah. And both of the books I chose were actually some that I read with my book clubs here at the library.
Oh, yeah, cool.
And so for my first book, this was originally published in 1939, and 70 something years later, my book group read it. And this is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Cool. So this classic tale of isolation and suspense, it's inspired endless books and movies and homages and TV shows and everything like that ever since it was first released. And reading it, I realized how many times I had actually seen a lot of these themes played out since the publication of this book.
Right.
Have you read this one?
I have not.
Okay, so you should sometime.
Okay.
But so this is about 10 people who are strangers to one another, and they're all sort of summoned in various means to this private island off the coast of Devon. So it's England. And they have been led there under false pretenses. Each person has a secret that they're keeping, something dark from their past, and each has been marked for death. Dun, dun, dun. And the thing with this is everyone has been brought there by someone that they know or sort of know. And so it's not until they're all together and actually isolated that they realize that, hey, I don't know anyone else here.
Yeah.
And so it has that weird, who do you trust if you don't know anyone?
Yeah.
Every room in the mansion that they've been summoned to has a framed nursery rhyme that is a sort of countdown from 10 down to 0, down to, and then there were none. And in each way, each of the countdowns, it's someone dying. So it's pretty soon the guests start to die in mysterious ways that seem to sort of line up with the rhyme. But who is doing it? Why? And can the remaining people find a way off of the island alive? So it's a thriller, but it's just got such a surprise to it that even though this book came out years and years ago, and I have seen various forms of this, I still did not see it coming. And part of that is because the ending has been changed in movies a bunch of times, but the original ending, just so good.
And it sounds great. I gotta say, it may be one of my biggest librarian shames that I'm with Agatha Christie. It's been Murder on the Orient Express and nothing else for me. I have not experienced too much of her work. So you're really drawing me in, and I think I need to check her out more.
Yes.
Sounds really good. So my next favorite read is called Counterpoint, a memoir of Bach and Mourning. I don't know if you notice, there's a little bit of a music theme with my choices this year, and it's by Philip Kennicott. And it's about Philip Kennicott is an art and music critic for the Washington Post, and he writes a lot about different genres and stuff, but this one is talking about his relationship with the music of Bach during a very seminal point in his life, and it was when his mother passed away. So he talks about how the music of Bach during this time really consoled him and also challenged him in a lot of ways. And what I really like about this book is he ties that in with what I would call the complex relationship that he had with his mother. So he'll talk about the relationship they had growing up, from his childhood to growing up. She was the person who kind of got him into music, took him to piano lessons growing up. So I really like how it ties in his love of music with, how that all draw him to his mother. Mm-hmm. And I really like his explanation of Bach's music. He tries to learn a piece of music by Bach called the Goldberg Variations, which is a really difficult piece of piano music. So I really like it for that reason too, because he talks about the challenge of trying to learn this piece of music. So even if you're not into classical music, it's really about a relationship between a mother and a son, the pain of grief, and also challenging yourself to try and do something really hard, like learn a really hard piece of music. So I really connected to it for that reason. And anyone who hasn't listened to Bach, you should absolutely listen to Bach. It's timeless music. And also, this time of year with the holiday season coming, it is a happy time. It is a jolly time, but for a lot of people, it can be a tough time too if you're going through something difficult in life or if you've lost someone close to you. So that really resonated with me as well, and maybe with some of our other patrons as well. So.
Can you play any Bach?
Very small amount. I'm getting there. I'm not even close to Goldberg Variations level, but yeah, I love Bach at least at that level.
That's good to know. Yeah. So my next book, I actually just read for this month's book club here at the library, but it got to me immediately. And as soon as I finished the first few chapters, I knew it was going to be one of my favorites of this year. So it was good that I got it in just under the wire to talk about with you. Yeah. So this is a little bit hard to describe, but I will do my best. Okay. This is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Okay. And a not so bright bank robber accidentally ends up in a hostage situation, not at the bank, but at an apartment across the street where an open house was occurring after trying to rob a bank that turned out to be a cashless bank
Oh no.
and then running away in fear into the nearest building, into the nearest open door where there is an apartment open house taking place, and accidentally just takes like 8 or 9 people hostage, your average everyday thing. So when we have come upon the scene,
Okay.
the hostages have already been released, but they're all being interrogated at the police station because the bank robber is still missing. So what is compulsively readable about this book is the way it is told. The book unfolds every chapter, there's something new, and it's told in a sort of second person style where the narrator often addresses you as the reader.
Yeah.
You know that this is a thing, and that's how it words things. It also splices in some of the interviews with the characters from the police records, and those are just hilarious at times.
Yeah.
We also get to go into the heads of all the different characters at times, including the hostages, the bank robber, the bank teller, even the police who are on the case. And the way this book explores that is very interesting because it will sort of give you somebody's impression of a character, and then you realize when you finally get into that character's head that the first person's impression was completely wrong. And this book really made for an awesome discussion with my book club because of the way that it unfolds. Every chapter has a surprise, and everyone had that same situation where it's like you were like, oh, I'm just gonna read one more chapter, and you get to the end and you're like, oh, I gotta see why. And it also does an interesting job of making you question your assumptions as a reader, as a person in general, but there are a lot of surprises that come up because you have made an assumption. And I can't tell you details because it would just spoil the story. And so that's why I'm talking in little vague things.
Right. Yes.
We also, in discussion, realized how many different things were foreshadowed because other people noticed things that I didn't notice when reading. And after my book discussion, I was like, I feel like I need to go back and read it again because I think I missed some stuff. And the book is just, it's incredibly funny and also incredibly sad at times. It's very poignant. The author drops a lot of truths on you about life, about loss, love, relationships, parenthood, a lot of great things. If it hadn't been a library book that I was reading, I might have gone through and underlined things. Because there were some really excellent lines in this book. So it's just, there's so many things that surprised me in reading this that I can't describe it super well, but hopefully that little snippet helps get you interested. And I just say you have to read it, and then if you need someone to talk about, come find me.
Yes, that sounds great. Actually, the fact that you said you couldn't tell me certain things made me want to read it more. So it's that little secrecy that's drawing me in to want to read this. So
I think secrets.
I like that. And kind of off topic, but when we're talking about these books, we don't want to give away too much because, like you said, some of the best parts of them are things you don't know going in. So that sounds like a good one. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. I'm really glad you got to hear some of our personal favorites that we've been reading. So hopefully you can check those out.
Yes. And, we always have so many that we want to read. So I'm sure we'll be able to do something similar next year with some that we haven't got to.
No doubt.
So join us next time. Happy reading.